Oh, yeah, no, pretty good, turned out pretty good.
All right, it is 4:02 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting of the Economic Development Corporation to order. Blanca, if we can establish quorum.
Hiren Govin, President.
Present.
Roland Gomez, Vice President. Daniel Dan Diaz, Secretary.
Present.
Aaron Ronnie Rivera, Treasurer.
Present.
Veronica Gonzalez, Director.
Present.
Sabrina Walker Hernandez, Director.
Present.
Raul Resendez, Director.
Present.
And we have quorum.
Appreciate it. And certified public notice, please.
The notice was posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act on September 24th at 1:48 p.m.
Appreciate it. Do we have anybody that is registered for public comments, or if anybody is on the line that would like to make any public comments? Nope. All right. Closing public comments. Blanca, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, President Hiren, Mr. Goldman. So I will be doing the director's report. We're reviewing our fiscal year 2021 annual report, so we'll be looking back into the year and the work plan and reviewing all the activities and the priorities that the board approved for fiscal year 2021. So that's going to be the report right now. And then in the next line item F, we'll be discussing fiscal year 2022 budget, staffing services, and work plan for the new fiscal year. So for this time, we're going to be talking about fiscal year 2021.
Excellent.
I'm going to share my screen. You'll also have the report with you in your packet if you want to follow along. Let me just scroll up a little bit. So this was our work plan for fiscal year 2021, and I'll walk through the activities that we said we were going to do and provide an update. So we do have our bond projects, the new Series 2019 bond projects, and that includes the Capable Kids Park, the Beethoven Park, the El Dulce Center, and the Resource Workforce Training Center. Those are all the 2019 new series bonds. We mentioned we were going to start construction, and we went ahead and did that along with our city engineer and different departments from the city of Edinburg, and we were able to accomplish that. We weren't able to fully execute the Resource Workforce Center EDA proposal that we mentioned we were going to do. There was just other priorities that took forward, like the Capable Kids, Beethoven Park, and El Dulce, and then everything else that we talked about. So I don't know if Mr. Garza would like to share some thoughts on that.
So I'll expand in depth in one of the items for executive session, but what I do want to just say is that, in terms of workforce training, and as evident as the city budget, the airport is really going to be the key priority for the next fiscal year. So if you remember back when we did our workshop, we had kind of identified that downtown would oversee that, and I think, that's why we built a package around that, but with what we did with the city budget, definitely the airport. Just to add to that a little bit, I don't know if you realize that the airport was really just a standalone division. It was a division that reported to the city manager's office. So that's something we're gonna put some resources to it. It is now, well, as of October 1st, going to be a department, so the city department of the airport. And we are hiring, it should be posted here probably next week. We're going to try and get it in by the career fair, but a director of the airport. So they'll have a true department head, and then we're adding a couple other positions, and then we're actively this week seeking some grant opportunities for the infrastructure. But we have to take a step back, do some reinvestment. Simple things like, during flooding events, it shuts down the runway, and that's just not feasible. So things like that we're going to address. So that workforce training opportunity, we're kind of shifting a little bit to, it's still going to be workforce when that project gets defined, but I think where we set that aside is really focusing on the airport.
Thank you, Mr. Garza. And that's still part of our bond projects, so it's something that we still have to do for this next fiscal year and the next 2 years or so. The next item is the published contracts, performance metrics, and payments for incentivized projects on City CIP dashboard. Staff and our department worked on improving our transparency by uploading all of the incentive projects and agreements, and we created a performance metrics form to keep track of all of the deliverables from the incentives projects, and that's all up on our website and the EDC website as a dashboard. So you can see where they're located, the amount of money they received, and if their project has been completed or not. So it's like a tracker. And we also approved, the board approved an incentive policy, and hopefully in the next board meeting or so, we will provide some updates on that and an overview of what this year looked like and how many projects we received for incentive applications and how many moved forward and how many did not. And we can have a discussion around that. Next.
Sorry, Blanca, I don't
Yep.
mean to interrupt. On the previous slide, the 3 projects that we started construction on, do we have a completion date on those 3?
I can provide that. So let me start with the El Tule Center. El Tule Center is on track. They're moving really well on that project, and that one is going to be substantial completion on that is going to be next August, the end of August of 2022. Beethoven Park, that one had a little bit of a delay. We found a live electrical line, so they're actually begun the relocation of that today, and it should be about another 5 weeks on that project. So 5 weeks, and then we'll do the ribbon cutting on that project. What is going to be delayed on that Beethoven Park is the bathroom, but that's that was the school's responsibility. So we're working with them to kind of get that back on track, but obviously they were focused on kind of the shifting priorities with the school year. So we're going to help them, but we're still going to go ahead and ribbon cut. The only thing, it won't have the bathroom outside. And then Capable Kids Park, we are finalizing the design on that, and that should be breaking ground in about 2 months.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
I have a question, guys. On the incentives, the approved incentive policy, what's the number of applicants that you get for that?
So we're going to review that in the next board meeting. I'll provide an overview of how many applicants we've received and the process that we do and all the incentive criteria. We will recommend a couple of changes to that depending on what we learned this year, and we'll present that to the board.
Okay. I'd like to suggest that we are involved in at least have an idea of who's applying. I have several people that come up to me because they know I'm on the EDC board and ask, and we'll mention something and we don't even know that they applied. Just kind of keep the board in the loop so we at least have some sort of an answer when they ask us.
Yes, will do.
Thank you.
So part of our work plan included procurement of an agency to develop a marketing strategy and materials. Our website is live as of this summer 2021, and we're still working with them throughout their contract up until November 2021 to finish up the marketing materials that we will receive from them. So we're still working with them. The main deliverable was our website, and that is live. Another item we procured was the real estate services that was awarded to Coldwell Banker Commercial, Rio Grande Valley. We do have a representative, I believe he left, or he stepped out. But they have been very helpful, and they will support our strategy with the North Industrial Park moving forward in this next fiscal year. We also implemented a small business development program that addressed lessons learned from Spark, and we worked in partnership with UTRGV for the Get Digital movement. We did provide some workshops for our Edinburg business community that participated in Spark, and I believe we'll have following more workshops this fall 2021 to continue that work. Our department also supported the city's comprehensive plan update, focusing on pedestrian activity, beautification of downtown, and obviously the support of the Bonds New Series 2021 for the ACE Center and the parking garage. Moving forward, this is about a one-pager reviewing our performance measures with deliverables here. For the small business focus, we did do the stimulus program aimed at recovery from COVID, which is our SPARK program. We did one for 2020 and then another one for 2021. 466 local businesses participated in the SPARK 2021 this year, and a total of 754 businesses participated in 2020 and 2021. Know that combined total numbers, some of these were duplicates, but the 754 are unique businesses. And we did approximately $800,000 in gift card sales to Spark businesses this year, and a total of $1.5 million in 2020 and 2021 combined. We're also in the middle of our gift card program, so we will report more accurate numbers in our semi-annual report coming up in fiscal year 2022. As mentioned before, our Get Digital training program, we supported 88 local businesses that participated in the workshop to learn how to use digital marketing tools, especially with the COVID-19, the pandemic. We definitely felt, and UTRGV felt, and learned that businesses needed to get online, especially for all the curbside pickup, the restaurants, the different businesses that didn't know how to navigate online, Google search, or just having a Google profile. They were very helpful and instrumental in helping businesses get online.
Thank you. Blanca, I have a question.
Yes.
Well, with regard to that program, in fact, the lady that does a lot of the trainings for that, Linda Ufflin, is here, and I know she'll be presenting on something else, but they've done these all around the valley, and we found that that's not just unique to Edinburg. It's been a problem really throughout the entire Rio Grande Valley, that a lot of businesses just didn't know how to pivot and get online and learn how to sell their product online. So these have been very helpful really throughout the whole Rio Grande Valley. The question I had above on the grants to the local businesses, so we had 466 businesses that received the Spark monies, but the 754 are new business or unique businesses in the city of Edinburg. Is that correct? So more than half received Spark grants of our new businesses or our existing businesses. Is that right?
We're actually working on our inventory of businesses right now, so I think we have somewhere between 1,900 and 2,000 businesses in the city limits, so a little less than half, but yeah, that 754 is across both years.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because I know the Chamber's also working with you as well to try to identify those that are not yet Chamber members and possibly addressing those members or getting them to become members.
Yeah, it's been going really well. We have that inventory we're working on as a shared resource for both of us, and working with the staff there, they've been a huge help trying to clean that up, and something that didn't really exist before in its entirety. I mean, they had a pretty good membership list, but nobody really had any idea what that universe of businesses, and actually now that we're talking about it, Michael Erbrock and Cy over at UTRGV have been a big help on the information side, getting that inventory together too.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, and we'll report on the list that Brian mentioned a little below, so we'll bring that up. For announced projects, these projects that have been approved by the board and by City Council and have been announced, we have 7 projects. As you see, Shane 8 was our most recent one that was approved, and our Edinburg Regional Medical Center and DHR were also part of the Texas Enterprise Zone program with the state, so they were also included on here. And we work very hard and very closely with each one of these to ensure that either we help them with purchase of property or the incentives application. Staff, Brian and I, Mr. Garza, with the DHR and Edinburg Regional Medical Center. So 7 projects total for this year, fiscal year 2021. For workforce development, we did host a job fair in August 5th, 2021 here in the city of Edinburg. We did have 28 employers participate, 178 job seekers attended, and 110 job offers were made. So that's a very good number there. We do like to announce, and you have a flyer in front of you for the October 8th, 2021 job fair, Employ RGV. We're very proud to announce that Employ RGV is going to be the largest job fair we're going to have in the Rio Grande Valley, in partnership with Workforce Solutions and the library and STC, and obviously the City of Edinburg and the EDC. So that's coming up. I just want to give that a heads up to you on. We will report the numbers. So we're expecting a couple thousand of people to show up at the Bird Ogden Arena and hopefully get employed, get a job. Some certifications. These certifications were with...
Blanca, one second.
Do you know how many job offers were accepted, or is that a data point that doesn't matter?
We can work with Workforce to see if we can track that. We do know that 110 job offers were made, so that's something that we can follow through and see if we can track that, how many offers were actually accepted. So, okay. Yeah.
And Blanca, can we also get the range and salary?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's cool.
That'll be good. Yeah. Yeah, and that'll be great because for this October 8th, we can set it up in a way where I can provide a more thorough report on the ranges and how many of those jobs that were offered were accepted. So, yep.
Thank you.
For the certifications, this was a program that was in partnership with South Texas College before, I think it was 2019, and ended in 2020. In December 2020, and these were the certifications that were completed: cybersecurity and other technologies. 6 of those were completed: biomedical equipment and maintenance, 3, and customer service, 3 of those. And then I know we have an open program with HSIR. They're still in their last semester. This will be their last semester, so we'll report how many certifications they received in the annual report, in the semi-annual report.
Was that the DHR collaboration?
Yes, yes. And then our business retention and expansion. So this is the list that we were able to collect. The created a contact database of approximately 2,000 local businesses. This was Brian, myself, staff, and Ronnie helped build this database. Spark helped a lot, obviously, as we interacted with businesses directly. So we're hopefully building on that, but 2,000 is a great start, and we have shared that with the chamber. That list has been shared with them, with staff over there. And for our business retention and expansion, we continue to contact businesses. 121 local businesses have been contacted. We have interviewed 32, touched base with them, surveyed their needs, and documented their plans for the future, and we found that we have 4 potential expansions within the next 2 to 5 years. So we're working very closely with them and planning and zoning to ensure that their expansions take place and assist them in any rezoning or any documentation for site plans that they may need to submit to the city for approval. And hopefully this number will continue to grow as we continue to meet with the business community. And we have another section here, other. And we do this ongoing. There are requests for information submitted to the Economic Development and Tourism Office of Governor Greg Abbott. 10 of those RFIs were submitted to that office. And there's different types of requests, typically large manufacturing businesses that are coming abroad or from outside of the state that are looking to come to Texas. They send RFIs to the communities, City of Edinburg being one of the communities. So we respond by submitting a proposal on a site, or when we had a building, we would submit a building, but typically we submit a proposal for our land availability. And that concludes my report.
On those to the state, did we land any, or the reasons we didn't land them, do we have kind of?
The reason?
Yeah.
So they do a call out to different communities in the state of Texas, and so they get different proposals, and there's usually rounds of reviews. If you do make it to the next round, the state will contact you for more information, and we were able to get a couple to the second round, but then the business or the company would decide to either go a different direction or go to a different state. So it just depends. So we continuously submit the proposals because you just never know when they're going to reply with, yes, we want to visit your community for more information. So that's ongoing.
I guess if we can get the reasons why we didn't make it to the second round on some of them, maybe we can add those and address it. If it's something that's an easy fix to maybe help us land more of them.
Well, I know something that we talk about all the time is the lack of warehouse space. I don't know if any of these were results specifically to that. Do you know that, Blanca?
No, they don't communicate that, but I can ask and see that. But typically, the requests come for warehouses, large warehouses.
That are already built
Already
and
built,
finished
yeah.
out. So that's a high demand area.
Are you seeing more of that, Ron? Of the need for that type of facility?
Absolutely.
All the time?
But we're talking, upwards of 100,000 square feet, large facilities.
Anybody have any more questions for Blanca? Thank you. Moving on to our regular agenda items. Consider the approval of the minutes for the board meeting on July 27th and August 17th, and also September 9th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented for August the 17th, 2021, and September the 9th, 2021,
And also July 27th?
and July 27th,
Excellent.
2021.
I can get a second, please?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Moving on to agenda item B, consider the approval of the financial report for July 2021 and August 2021. Christian, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
Doing well.
I guess you can hear me okay. Okay, the report we have in front of us is our monthly report. It's a statement of cash receipts, disbursements, and cash balances of the unrestricted cash. This is not an accrual-based financial statement. This is just a cash flow type report. We have it dissected by month. If we can hover our eyes over to the August column, that's the activity what happened last month, from August 1 to August 31st. You'll see that we collected $717,000 in the sales tax revenue, our portion from the city. That is actually June's earnings, or the activity from June. We collected $7,586 in lease payments, and then we collected a little bit of interest. If you kind of move your eyes over to the right, you'll see the year-to-date actual, and then you'll see the annual budget. You'll see that year-to-date, we collected $6.8 million in sales tax, and our original budget was $6.5 million. So we've already met our goal for the budget. The one below is the lease payments. We had budget for $48,000, and we've already collected $85,000. So we have some unexpected improvements there. Sell a property, $10,000. There was a sale, and then we collected on the escrow. And the next one was the interest. We had anticipated to collect at least about $25,000 in interest, but interest rates kept on dipping, so we collected $9,418 through August. And that negative $6,909 just reflects that it's part of the restricted accounts. So overall, year to date, we collected $6.9 million so far through August 31st. We had a budget for $10 million. That $4 million you see there, that was anticipation that we were going to get reimbursed from the restricted account for the when we spend monies on the capital projects. So whenever we spend money on the capital projects, we expect to get reimbursed through the restricted accounts. Okay. We go back to August, column of August, you'll see that it's another light month of expenditures. $320 in contractual maintenance services, $14,000 in programs. If you see a negative number, it's because we got reimbursed on some expenses. Properties, we got reimbursed on utilities. Next page. Projects, you'll see that we didn't have any money spent there. You look in the bond projects, that one little category in the project section, you'll see that overall, year to date, we've only spent $51,000. That budget of $5.6 million, we anticipate that to be spent in the next fiscal year. And when we spend that money, of course, we'll get the unrestricted cash accounts will get reimbursed by the restricted cash accounts that we have there, the money received from the bonds. So August overall, we had a net collection of $711,000. We started out with a month of $7 million, and we ended up with $7.8 million. For the year to date, we have a net increase in cash of $2.3 million. We started out with 5.4, and we ended up with 7.8 as of August 31st. The section below is just a breakdown of how our unrestricted cash and our restricted cash. Well, overall, we have $21 million in cash, $8 million in $7.8 million in unrestricted cash, and $13 million in restricted cash in rounded figures. Any questions about the statement of cash receipts and disbursements, cash balances? Okay. Next report is just a comparable analysis of our sales tax revenues. This is the EDC's portion, not the city of Edinburg. We get a quarter of that. So you'll see that when we're looking at July, our performance, the city of Edinburgh's performance for EDC's portion was $611,000. You compare that to 2020, it was $538. We have a 14% growth for the month. Overall, for the year, we have a 26% growth compared to 2020. Okay, next page. Next page is going to be the balance sheet. Total assets, almost $43 million, the number at the very bottom. Total assets, $43 million. A large part of that is going to be cash, $21 million. Our accounts receivable, you'll see there at $2.8 million. We're going to talk about that a little bit, but a lot of that is just the interest accrual on the Santana note, and the rest is going to be other assets. Other assets going to be furniture, equipment, land, property, and the note receivable from Santana. Next page is going to be the liabilities. So if you got $42 million in assets, you got $26 million in liabilities, we have a net equity of $16 million. Any questions about the statement of assets and liabilities? Okay. Next page is going to be the breakdown of our accounts receivable. As I mentioned before, we have $2.8 million in receivables. You have $2 million of that is going to be the accrual of the interest and late fees from the Santana notes. Okay. Any questions overall about the statement of cash receipts, disbursements, and other items in the financial report?
With the new bonds, how are we going to handle all this, the Santana notes?
Well, I think first and foremost, we continue to, accrue the interest. Hopefully someday we'll collect it all. Whether we collect it or not, I don't know. And then I think Ron or Blanca could talk about the Santana note. Hopefully we'll become a first lien holder on the property. Blanca, do you have any other ideas there?
So the payments on the new bond, it's actually, because of the savings we achieved there, it'll actually be a little bit less. So in terms of handling the debt service, there won't be much of an impact, at least in the near term. And as we've discussed in the past, the future of that project is a little uncertain at this point. What we do know, and which we've reported to you before, is that there's not much we can do until spring of next year. And as we kind of look forward to that and get a little bit closer, we'll be discussing this more and what potential options we have available to us at that point.
Fair enough.
You know, I find it interesting that even during the pandemic, it looks like our sales tax revenues were still up. In fact, we were higher in 2020 than we were in 2019, and we probably will be for 21 higher than we were in 20. But do you attribute that to the growth in population? Do you attribute it to more businesses opening here? What do you mostly attribute that to?
Mostly, so our top sales tax earners are really consistent, and for the most part, as a overall, this is a very high level trend, residents of the city shop in the city. So that's kind of a constant. And the growth that we're seeing in population and other things are just kind of arcing that. Obviously, we do have some new businesses that have come online, none yet that have really impacted the sales tax numbers. There's not one business yet that we can see that is just really standing out. But the top, and Dago and I look at this all the time, but I think about the top 10 of the not quite 2,500 entities that reports, I mean, that top 10 makes up about 30% of the, I mean, they're strong. So, yeah, there's some that are in the middle that we always look at. I always refer to the theaters and JCPenney. Those are kind of those middle markets that still, I mean, that's a big chunk. They stand right near or right outside the top 10. That those could really indicate which way we go. But yeah, double digit, you know, it's just really resilient right now, and mostly because we kind of shop local.
Yeah, that's a good trend.
Yeah, yep.
Thanks.
Anybody have any more questions for Christian or anyone?
Anything on NUCO, guys? Where we stand with NUCO?
Do you mean in terms of collecting on back rent?
Yeah, this is in our books.
Right, yeah, no, nothing new on that one.
Nothing.
Any more questions? Thank you, Christian. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the financials.
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. All right, moving on to agenda item C, presentation considering the letter of support for the LRGV Development Council and UTRGV regional application for fiscal year 2021 for the American Rescue Plan Act Build Back Better Regional Challenge.
Yes, we do have Ms. Linda Uffland from UTRGV that will make a presentation. A little bit of the background. Linda and I discussed incubation, business incubation here a couple of months ago, and maybe about a month ago or so, she approached me along with the Lower Rio Grande Valley Development Council, a regional organization out of Weslaco, to apply to an EDA grant. We wanted to partner to be part of this RGV network of incubators, City of Edinburg being a key city. So we invited her to present to the board and see if this is something of interest. The staff supports this, but obviously we need to present to the board for your consideration.
Excellent. Good afternoon, ma'am. How you doing?
Hi, good evening, afternoon. Thank you for allowing us to present today. Blanca, if you want to go to... Just a little bit of background on the EDA, the challenge that came out. Under the American Rescue Plan, EDA allocated about $3 billion in funding for 6 different challenges to assist communities nationwide to accelerate the economic recovery from COVID-19. So one of them being the Build Back Better Regional Challenge. And as you can see on your screen, this is a 2-phase competition. to help regions develop transformational economic development strategies and to fund the implementation of those strategies. It is designed to support clusters in transforming their regional economy through groups, so that means regional. So that's just a little bit of background on the actual grant application, or the Build Back Better. A little bit about us and who we are. We are the UTRGV Entrepreneurship and Commercialization Center under the Office of Economic Development, under the Division of Governmental and Community Relations. I know it's big. And I'm the Director for Innovation, Commercialization, and Entrepreneurship for UTRGV under the Office of Economic Development. So our center really focuses on really assisting our, kind of putting together industry and government to really help our local, create opportunities, entrepreneurs, and enterprise. And of course, we have, if you can, so that's basically who we are. We are part of a cluster of really a hub at UTRGV for economic development support. And a little bit about what we're doing. So the grant concept focuses on building a coalition of entrepreneurship or economic development centers around the Rio Grande Valley. The Lower Rio Grande Valley Development Council and UTRGV Economic Development kind of joined forces to create a regional coalition by engaging economic development corporations around the Rio Grande Valley interested in developing entrepreneurship centers to foster emerging industries. I think the key word here is emerging industries. These centers are not being built to not only provide assistance and technical assistance to our business community, but to actually foster emerging industries. Some of these industries include aerospace technology, small business manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, energy, and biotechnology, among others. But we're really focusing on those 5, which we have seen throughout our work around the region that really have been emerging in the Rio Grande Valley, and that we need to put some resources into play because they're job creators. So that's the concept that we have. We will provide all the programming, all the feasibility studies, all the work that is done behind to create the sites, but with the support of the EDCs. So the EDCs will come and play with us, and we will build these different locations according to the needs of each city or strategic city that we are focusing on. A little bit about who is involved, because I think it's important that you know who else is part of this coalition. We have Bronxville, and we have South Padre Island, Harlingen, Pharr, Edinburg, McAllen, and the city of Hidalgo, as of now. We have asked them to be part of this coalition. Most of them have accepted our challenge. So we'll be working with them in phase 1 to really build the planning process. And if we get invited for phase 2, then we will develop each site. The grant does include construction, renovation, all of it. So we're able to really create very unique strategic sites for each of the EDCs. The UTRGV will play a major role as we will bring all our resources from the university, not only economic development, but within economic development, of course, we have our center, the ECC. We will provide incubation, entrepreneurial development, and innovation and consultation. We have the Texas Manufacturing Assistance Center, TMAC, which focuses on manufacturing, certifications, and so forth. The Small Business Development Center, which everybody knows as SBDC. And of course, within that, we have the PTAC, which is procurement, and we have BVOC, which is veterans. And we also open the gateway for collaborations with research, and of course, all our forces in academics, such as engineering, computer science, biology, physics, chemistry, and so forth. So we're really a powerhouse at UTRGV that can really help our region scale and grow within these emerging industries. To focus a little bit on the concept, and of course with the assistance or with the actually backing of the Lower Rio Grande Valley Development Council, we're building a proposal that really reaches that regional approach that EDA is looking for. Focus on what we will do in Edinburg. We will really want to create a space that provides local, regional, and international entrepreneurs resources necessary to create, grow, and land their venture. We believe that the city of Edinburg has emerging industries such as small business manufacturing, international soft landings, and food commercialization. To talk a little bit about soft landings, what we have seen here, a huge influx of industries from the Americas, including Mexico, South America, and Central America, that are moving their operations to the United States. We're the perfect site. we have a seaport, we have international border lines, we have rail, we have air, and we have space. So we are the perfect soft landing, and we just received a designation for a soft landing, which is among, I think, 30 in the United States. So we see a really focus here because we're so close to the border, and you have that influx of Mexican nationals coming in, trying to bring their foreign investment, which are also job creators. Of course, each site will have the support of the ECC. We will be managing the site along with your support, and the sustainable model includes having anchor tenants to sustain the operation of each site, as well as any programming that we'll be able to offer. So a little bit about the grant, though, and here's the kicker. If you can go to the next one. So phase one, it's about 50 to 60 regional coalition of partnering entities will be awarded $500,000 in technical assistance funds to develop and support 3 to 8 projects to grow a regional growth cluster. So we have our 8 projects in place. And what we will do is we'll use those $500,000 to develop each site, to do the feasibility studies for each one, to really understand the needs of our entrepreneurs. What we think is not necessarily what they need. So it's important that we explore those studies and understand what our entrepreneurs are looking for. And we will also develop some of the programming and some of the consultation to establish the different sites with whatever those programs will be needed depending on what the emerging industry we're focusing on. I think one of the things that is important to understand is that this coalition will also have shared services. So any entrepreneur along the Rio Grande Valley will be able to visit the sites and conduct their business within all different 8 projects. The deadline for our phase 1 is October 19 to be awarded by December 2021, and there's no match required for that phase 1. Out of phase 1, we might be getting an invitation for phase 2, which is the EDA will award about 20 to 30 regional coalitions with 25 million to 75 million award, and up to 100 million to implement those projects. So we are going for the 25 million, but of course that can be higher depending on each project and what everybody is looking for. The deadline for that is March 15 to be awarded by September 2022. The catch is it's a 20-80 match. So what we were thinking is that each EDC, depending on the project and the value of each site and each construction, if you require construction or renovation, will provide the match for that particular. It will be proportional. It will not be equal. Everybody has to give a 20-80 match or 20% match across the board. So we were trying to see if like a project is bigger in another city than it is then it will be proportional match. So that's the grant. That's the opportunity. Blanca and I had been talking about building an incubator space and a maker space here in the city of Edinburg, even before the grant or the opportunity came to life, and we were going to do it either way. We were going to try. But now that this opportunity has come into play, and for us to really put in a proposal, a regional proposal that has been actually encouraged by the EDA through the Lower Rio Grande Valley Development Council, we definitely think that we have a great opportunity to apply. The Lower Rio Grande Valley Development Council will be the lead on phase 1, but UTRGV will then be a co-applicant if we are invited for phase 2. I can entertain any questions if you have any.
I applaud you guys for thinking regionally.
Thank you.
And I know it's not the most PC thing to say, but the valley is how everyone sees us, not as individual cities and or even counties at this point. So you said there's 8 projects that's already been designated. Do you have those 8 projects?
Well, it's every city. So we have,
Okay.
We have Brownsville, which is South Padre Island.
Okay.
The cities are the other projects. We're calling them projects.
Okay.
We also have 2 projects that are within UTRGV that we would like to implement that align very well with either the food commercialization project that we have going in terms of the programming that we offer and possibly aerospace. So, we're trying to bring in those resources from the university to really support these emerging industries. And you're right, we got to think regionally. When we go out to conferences, we always talk about the region. Wherever they land is good, as long as they land in the Rio Grande Valley.
So, Linda, the the 2080 match, assuming that we get to the phase 2, the 2080 match would be then about 5 million that we would have to come up with among all of the different entities. And again, it wouldn't necessarily be an equal amount, but it would be proportional based on what is the need in that particular city. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so have y'all had, it, and just for full disclosure, Linda works under my department, and so I won't be voting on this. I'll recuse myself, but I think these questions are important so that we all get a good understanding of it. Have y'all had a discussion in terms of what you think the amount would be required for the Edinburg incubator?
No, we do not have to determine that on phase 1. I think we need to do the feasibility study. I think we need to do the planning and the programming to really determine the amount. So we don't have to specify amounts by projects. We just talk about the overall general concept right now. The phase 1 is very short. It's a 5-page narrative, so there's not a lot of room for us to expand. But EDA doesn't want us to go into detail until the studies are made and the planning process takes place, which happens during phase 1. So we're not putting an amount on any site right now. We're just asking for your support and your commitment to join this coalition as part of this regional approach that we're taking for this opportunity.
I have a question on phase 2. I know you're coming for phase 1, but just a curious question. On phase 2, can the 20% match be in kind, or does it have to be a cash match?
It can be anything. It's open for everything. In kind, cash, bond. I mean, they opened it up completely. So we're very surprised, but we're excited too, because that allows a lot of our EDCs to be able to put in any in-kind contributions that they might have.
Another thing that I want y'all to know is Linda works really all across the valley. Her main location has been in Brownsville, and they have done some amazing things. Working with the BCIC over there, they've created a project called eBridge, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but they've built basically a very large incubator in downtown Brownsville. It's being renovated. It's an old building that was there on Adams Street, and it's going to be kind of the one-stop shop for all business needs, right? So you'll have incubation there, but you'll also go for city permits and for any type of business need that you might have, resume writing, whatever it may be, financial planning will be there. So she is, as part of that, Linda went out and she basically learned and studied incubators all around the country and figured out what works in an incubator, what do you need, what is it that would draw people, and so those plans have gone into what they're doing at BCIC. So it's not an idea without any kind of, planning behind it. This has been something that they've tested and they're working on right now to establish in Brownsville. From that came a lot of interest from other cities and saying, hey, we want one here too, but we don't want just a basic incubator. We want one that's really going to specialize in the things that are important in our area or where the industry is coming from. And so that's where she said, we want to do that with each particular city to look at what's their strength in their particular city.
I have one more
The
question.
eBridge is a hub, that we're creating in Brownsville. It has taken quite a bit of time, but we managed to build a partnership with government to create this it's a 36,000 square foot facility in Brownsville, and really bring all the resources that government has or economic development corporations have that an institution like ours, which are state, are not able to provide. Example is Startup Texas, which we will be willing to share among the region. Startup Texas is a seed funding competition. So we will also create sort of like a Startup Texas competition here to provide our local entrepreneurs or anybody that's interested in landing in the city of Edinburg with seed funding, because that's the number one reason sometimes businesses do not start. So lack of financials. So giving them a little push is always a good thing, and it's part of incubation that us have filled that, we filled that gap by building those partnerships with EDCs. Our work mainly is with the economic development corporations. We collaborate with chambers, but our focus are EDCs because we consider ourselves economic development support. We are ESOs in so many ways.
Is the planning and incubation going to take into account not-for-profit business models?
Yes. We actually have programming for nonprofits as well. They're job creators. They do. And sometimes they can be really big. United Way is an example. So we need to make sure that we foster all, not just profit businesses. So, and it's not necessarily that it has to be incubation. Again, each site might be a different model. For example, City of Hidalgo looks more at a co-working space. Harlingen looks more at a wet lab or a maker space because they're focused in the health professions. So we're looking at every single site, and depending on what the needs come out as, that's what we will build. It doesn't have to be an incubator, but there has to be incubation programming, but not necessarily the whole place will be an incubator space.
I have a question. Great hearing from in terms of the work that you're working on. That's exciting. For once we truly get an incubation definition that aligns with what we want to do, and not necessarily farmers markets incubation and things like that. So I'm excited to hear more. We had a conversation about the airport earlier in terms of that being a strategic focus for us. Can those funds be used in the space of creating in terms of analysis for possible aerodynamics, training, developing at the airport, in terms of facilities out there to encourage investment into like the airport, where you guys come in and do studies versus and us partnering with the cost of it, 20%, 80%. Is that feasible in terms of looking at our airport as a project? And do y'all do the work to say, look, this can be a pretty possible project for us under what you're seeing?
Well, it depends. I mean, the EDC Edinburg will decide the type of project that you want to invest in. I mean, it's open up as long as it has an economic development impact, meaning job creation, job retention, scalability. Those are the metrics and deliverables that are really EDA is focusing on. If we can create a space related to airport facilities that might support, aerodynamics, aerospace technology in that kind of space, probably something, can be worked out.
And I'm just looking at it from a perspective, if we're trying to strategically align what EDC is trying to do with either real estate or a specific area in our geographic area, this seems like a valid alignment of future generation of business with government involvement and the university and us together, not just for a pet project, but for a true futuristic opportunity for us to gain new business in our market.
As long as we are creating new businesses and we are fostering economic development and fostering those emerging industries that can be related to whatever the needs of the city of Edinburg are, we can entertain. The project will be defined once we are able to start planning and having those conversations between us.
But is there required to have a current need or a created need?
It can be a current need.
But I'm more focused on a created need.
Yeah, it can be both.
We want to create who we are.
I think current needs is what we know already. I think what we're looking for is what other things we can do that we can create by fostering these industries.
Right.
Because aerospace is not set yet. It's
Absolutely.
fairly new.
SpaceX has changed Brownsville.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. But it's changed the entire valley.
That's
if you
correct.
really think we want to bring service providers that can then foster that industry, we're not looking to do business, directly with them, but maybe our service providers can then give that work and create those.
Yeah, I think, Raul, a lot will come down to how far are we along with what we want to do at the airport? Because if we find that there's a real interest from our group and also the city, and we are really building up the airport, and we know that there's some state funding or even federal funding that could help there, then we may be able to attract businesses that want to come here that are going to complement that, the industry and what we're doing at the airport. But I think if we are not far along, because if we get this grant, we have to show that we're actually creating jobs, right, and creating an industry. We don't want to focus on something that may be way far down the road. But I think we want to see where we're at with the airport when then we get to hopefully phase 2 and looking into how are we going to be able to create a vibrant airport such that we would attract businesses.
From our perspective on the city, we're primed. So, we're as close as opportunity is. So, with the adjacent, everything we've done this year with the industrial park being so close, and then, we do have some base infrastructure needs on the airport, but but we are absolutely ready to go.
I was gonna say, I think you stole Ron's thunder there a little bit on the airport.
Yeah, no, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that because I was thinking along the same lines. I'm trying to wrap my head around. My head around. So phase one is going to be 50 to 60 regional coalitions, and the goal is a regional growth cluster. So the region here will be 8 cities that you're using. And how are they going? So then phase two is going to be half of those are going to be awarded the rest of the money.
Yes, out of the 50 and 60, only 20 to 30 will be nationwide, will be awarded.
Nationwide,
Will be invited to participate in phase two.
So based on the idea of the growth in the region, that's how you get awarded the funds?
Yes. Yeah. So depending on each side and what their needs are. And again, we're going for 25 million, but it might be a little bit more depending on each side.
Yeah, immediately I thought airport, like that's the first thing I thought. I do know that expansion of the runway would bring more business to us. And the second thing I thought what Ron touched on was if we got into warehouse space, then we'd attract large business ventures that would employ a lot of people.
Well, those are sort of like the soft landings that we talked about, that they require like the use of industrial parks and warehouse that want to be their plants. We've seen it. I mean, we have 10 international companies incubated in our center right now. And what incubation means is you take that somebody from step 1 to end game. So the idea is to...
You know that.
to soft land them. And those, I mean, we think foreign investment really brings those jobs if they operate by bringing their plants or their distribution sites or their assembly lines. Any part of the operation that can be moved to the United States makes them a Texas product, which is full of benefits as well.
Right, so it's not necessarily all about startups. It can be an existing
Definitely
large
not all about
conglomerate that we want to bring to the region.
Yeah, we will be working with existing or scalable businesses that can already exist but want to grow.
Yeah,
And
it's exciting.
It being a regional thing, so let's say phase two, we get it. And each city kind of wants to do something that's just too specific to them. But if the overall landscape says, hey, look, you know what, we all need to kind of aim towards this, so our entire region can support just aerospace, just for lack of a better term. Or are we going to work together like that on an end game to where our entire region will benefit
I
from
think
the
we all
one
have to
major
be
project?
I think we all have to be on the same sheet of music to get the biggest reward.
That's the idea. I
Okay,
mean,
yeah,
we
just
want to
making
bring everybody together. I think for us, for regional organizations like UTRGV and the Lower Rio Grande Valley Development Council, it's a dream that we want to make a reality. I think just thinking regionally is what we need to do to really put ourselves on the map.
Linda, there is some flexibility. Obviously, you know, each entity and part of the coalition, their commitment to their match will help shape. So basically, the more we want to match, the bigger the scope of this particular project would be. And then again, I know Edinburg was already identified just from a standpoint of being a key city. So, I mean, we would serve as part of the anchor to this coalition.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I think Edinburg was one of the first ones on our list to approach.
That's awesome.
So then is the goal to, in your presentation, you talked about each city and what might be specific to the city, but the goal there really is to find a mutual area that everyone can agree to expand on?
Now, I mean, there might be a city that, for example, let's take South Padre Island. They're very, very tourism, entertainment. They're not really in the manufacturing. So we will focus certain programming to really foster that because of the influx of this tourism and hospitality. I mean, all these tourism coming in just because of SpaceX, basically. So we're focusing a little bit on them in terms of, you know, what can we do to build up entertainment, tourism activities, and that's what they, you know, kind of their focus is. So there might be a little, you know, disparity between some of them just because of the nature of their business or their location. But definitely the idea is to foster the emerging industries across the board, not in one location specifically. Now, one location might have certain equipment that the other one doesn't have, but that's when the shared services come into play. and you don't have to travel to San Antonio, Houston, Dallas to go to a makerspace that has that specialized equipment, one of our sites will be able to accommodate you, which everybody will have access to all share sites. And that's the commonality between all of them.
Then would there be a scenario play out that you're awarded $25 million and nothing happens necessarily in Edinburg, but it happens regionally, but we would still have to pay some money?
I think it's part of the UTRGV economic development to really make sure that there's impact throughout the sites. I mean, I cannot definitely guarantee that every company will land in Edinburg, but we'll
But they may
definitely
not.
do our work, our due
More
diligence.
on a case where nothing lands in Edinburg, but we're part of this regional team. Would there be a possibility that nothing may land in Edinburg, but we will still have to pay?
Yes.
But
I mean, once you commit, you kind of be part of the coalition when you have to get the match. Now, if we do the feasibility study and you decide that this is not, once we have phase one, and you do not want to move forward with phase two, we can, that's the time to kind of also be able to pull out of the coalition. So there's still that moment that you can still say no.
Yeah, in the in-kind, it could be in-kind, so it's not necessarily cash.
Exactly.
And the phase one is really more the support letter to show that this is a plan that we all stand behind as different areas of the Rio Grande Valley. Phase two, if we get the invitation, hopefully we do, then we will really focus on what is going to be the type of industries that we're trying to attract for our particular cities.
If I may, Linda, the important piece here is a feasibility study. So I think once we uncover the needs and the strengths of Edinburg, we can definitely plan and incorporate the airport if needed. But I think even if hopefully we get invited to phase two, but if we don't, the feasibility study will be ours. And
Definitely,
we can go ahead and do that, yeah.
I totally agree. It's a win-win because in either way, if we get awarded phase one, we will at least have moved that needle forward and use some of their money with no match to have, definitely identified certain areas or key areas that then we can focus on in the city of Edinburg.
Excellent. Any more questions?
Very exciting, thank you, ma'am. I don't have anything.
Welcome.
Indeed. Right. If there's no more questions, I'll entertain a motion on agenda item C.
I'll make a motion to go with the staff recommendation to approve.
I second the motion to provide a letter of support for Lower Rio Grande Valley Development Council and the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley
Right,
to
thank you.
originally apply for fiscal year 2021.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, same sign, and we have one abstention. Veronica. All right, moving on to agenda item D, consider the renewal of UTRGV's technical assistance contract for fiscal year 2022.
This is a renewal of a contract that we currently have with UTRGV for technical assistance. We want to continue our partnership with the university. As Brian mentioned earlier, they have been very helpful in research and helping us with our fiscal impact analysis for all of our projects that we've been working on this year, and we want to continue that moving forward. The agreement amount is $15,000 for a total of 30 hours per quarter. This year we did not exceed the 30 hours, so we're going to continue with the same amount of hours and amount. And the staff recommends approval as well.
This is for like the feasibility studies and stuff that right?
Yeah, for every project, especially requesting incentives, we get them to do a fiscal impact analysis so we know what the cost benefit looks like for the proposal. And I said earlier, I'm going to say it again, just for the record, so Michael believes me that it's actually recorded. Michael and Cy and the team over there, they're great. They're extremely responsive. I mean, in some cases, turning stuff around in 24 hours or less when we need something urgently. And everything we've asked of them, they've done. And so, yeah, this is one of the best tools we have in the toolbox here on the research side.
Sure. I've had the privilege of working with Cy before too. He's very quick.
I make a motion to authorize the renewal of the UTRGV technical assistant contract for fiscal year 2022.
Second.
Second. All in favor, please raise your hand.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Would you mind repeating that? I don't think the record picked it up.
Okay, no problem. Hopefully I won't cough. So I make a motion to renew the contract for UTRGV technical assistant for fiscal year 2022.
Second.
Second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, same sign. And one abstention. Veronica Gonzalez. All right. Moving on to agenda item E, consider the approval of the lease agreement between EDC and the City of Edinburg regarding rental space.
This lease agreement is between the Edinburg EDC and the City of Edinburg. This is regarding to the McIntyre space between McIntyre and 7th Street for where we host the food trucks and tunes. This will allow the city to rent the property to the public, the McIntyre Promenade Courtyard, and it's going to be for public use to rent to the public. The staff recommends approval. I don't know if Mr. Garza has anything to add to that.
Sure. So what this would do is mirror, with this agreement, it retains the EDC property for other plans that we have there, but the city would administer the rental. So all the rentals that we do, quite honestly, by ordinance, they're not for profit. Because we have to have a lot of staffing to set up and tear down and facilitate the rentals. So I think the rates are really nominal when it comes to that. So we would keep the rate at such, to where it's about the same. But obviously we've had a lot of interest renting that facility. This weekend we'll finish the second half, which is where the existing homes were. So now that it's a complete kind of enclosed section, with this kind of agreement, we can ratify it at the city level and then begin the rental space of this. I know there's already interest. I know the chamber wants to use it, so that also is some of the timing that we want this agreement to go forth.
I have a question on conflicting renters. Who makes the decision on that?
First come, first serve in terms of booking. So we use our parks department and also our cultural arts department, and they have a really dedicated process. And there's also times when, quite honestly, we have to bump them because, with things that we've had to do for COVID, but they're pretty understanding. They have to put down a deposit and also a deposit for the police officers that they have to have on site. So we're just basically going to mirror the same rental ordinance that we have. Same process, set up, tear down, same hours kind of thing. We'll mirror the hours at the court, because this courtyard and the auditorium, even separately, are already rental spaces. So technically, if somebody wants to rent all three spaces, they can do so. If they want the street closed, that's actually a waiver that has to go before council, because that puts in city resources to close that street and monitor the safety. So, but somebody can independently rent one of those, and the only stipulation to that is alcohol. So we would put the same restrictions that we have like at Lagos, because we do have an alcohol permit here. So Lagos, when you rent the pavilion, you can rent the pavilion. You can bring outside food in some cases, but we always encourage, obviously, to use from there since there's a restaurant. But the alcohol sales is done by the alcohol provider, which is the city, or the license owner. So.
Ron, do they have to show proof of insurance or anything? Do they have to get any kind of a policy in the event that, for instance, somebody fell down out there or hurt themselves?
I think that's, Omar, is that part of the hold harmless is part of the rental agreement, isn't it?
It is. There's a requirement that they indemnify the city, as well as have sufficient liability insurance.
Okay.
And as well, with the size and scope, they have to have police officers on site as part of the rental.
So the land would still be owned by the EDC?
Yes, yeah. This is just a rental agreement that we'd administer the rentals.
Any more questions?
So the only thing that, just because again, the names are very functional, And the food truck, we've referenced it as a food truck park, but food trucks don't actually go in there. That's the eatery park. So just for consistency of ordinances, we're referring that as the McIntyre Courtyard. So this is a City Hall courtyard, and it's the closest to a courtyard. But so if there's anything else specific that you want to name it that functionally doesn't conflict with anything else, I mean, we're open to that. But we landed on McIntyre Courtyard.
How long is the contract for?
I don't remember.
Yeah, there's no set term. It's effective when it's approved, but there's an option to terminate.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Moving on to agenda item F, consider the approval of fiscal year 2022 budget, staffing services, lease agreement, and work plan.
Working on sharing my screen, 1 second. Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. I will present the Edinburg Economic Development Corporation budget and work plan. It'll be very high level the first couple of slides, and then I will share my screen with the budget, which is also part of your packet, and then we will discuss the work plan for fiscal year 22 coming up. So our first slide for our budget, a couple of highlights here. Our budget is total of $8.7 million. Our projected sales tax revenue is $7.73 million, 3% growth of sales tax revenue projected. It's a very conservative number. Hopefully we get more, but just for the conservative purposes, we wanted to keep it at 7.7. And our administrative services agreement is $1 million, and that did not change from the previous administrative services, so we're keeping that the same. Other highlights, and this is more on the activities for property. We did budget another $1 million to ensure that we have enough monies to ensure that we buy any property that may come up in the future, any projects that the EDC board may want to do or staff can recommend. I know during executive session we will discuss a project that we'll share with the board. Our incentives, we have currently $442,000 budgeted for existing incentive projects and $500,000 for new projects that may come up in this new year. Our debt service is at $3.6 million, and this includes the new bonds, the 2021 new series, so it's at $3.6 million. And our savings, which is our unrestricted cash, is going to be about $5 million. And that will cover 1 year of our debt service and 1 year of operating, meaning our administrative services. So that's part of our savings. And then our bond projects, that is separate, that is paid with our bond money, and that we have $8.1 million for our 2019 bond projects and $9 million for our 2021 bond projects, the two new ones that we just went into contract with. So this is a bird's view on the administrative services. We do have a contractual and maintenance services section in our EDC budget, and it includes our admin services for $1 million as a line item. And we have professional services, audit, CPA, finance services, and that is everything else that the EDC will need to complete their audit, to complete our consultations with our finance advisors, which is Hilltops, and our CPA, Chris, who will assist with our audit as well, and then our bond agents that assist with all of our bond inquiries. And then looking in closer into our admin services, the $1 million, we created a breakdown of where the $1 million is going. So you can see that every department is listed on there that supports the EDC, and then our economic development department's budget for $500,000. And with a total of $1,068,000, but obviously our fee is for $1 million. So we're providing higher value to the EDC. And are there any questions?
Yeah, let me say one more thing about the reason we formatted it this way. So a question came up, and I can't remember if it was during the workshop last time or before that, but the way the administrative services agreement was set up, it was just a flat fee. And that was used in sort of year one or leading into year one as kind of an estimate of what we thought it would take to run the EDC. And then, we started phasing out some of the outside contract help because you could start to take advantage of the in-house city services, which is going to generate some cost savings. And so the question came up, could we get some more insight into what those cost savings might be based on how we allocate some of the time of other city departments and other department resources toward EDC work. So that's kind of the right-hand side of this slide. And we have the finance director here if you have any questions about how that was done. But, you can see, how those resources across the various departments that we use for EDC work kind of breaks out. And, you're actually, what is that, 87,000 or 68,000 to the good on top of the $1 million administrative service fee. So does that make sense, the way we presented that? Okay.
And I will add that each department was integral in this year's activities in our work plan. Finance, engineering, IT, communications, and media, they all supported in the work that the EDC does throughout the year. So I just wanted to share that.
I kind of want to, from our side, from the city, I want to reinforce that. One particular story, we were talking about gaps of service or more resources that Blanca wanted from economic development, and she had originally allocated to another position for a graphic design that would have been in the EDC budget. So we talked about the need and why, and I totally support that, but obviously as a department of the city, I said, you shouldn't have to pay for that. If you're not getting a direct, resource in terms of capacity, and again, I think we've hit the sweet spot now that she knows what she needs to do the work. So what we did there, just from the city budget, is we're adding another graphic designer to the communications department, but they're already well aware of that person is basically going to assign. I'm sure they'll do other city projects and things like that, but 80-90% of it is going to be specifically for economic development. So those are the kind of things that, they're not really monetary, but it's kind of a mind shift with everybody that you don't have, you better get everything another department, gets. And even from a finance perspective, other funds we do segment it a little bit, but I just, and I tell that story because, we just need to make sure that we're going to evaluate if there's a gap that the department needs. If that's something that any other department would get, well, that's going to come from the city side of the budget, and that's all-inclusive administrative services contract should cover it, even if that number's over $1 million.
So I guess, Brian and Blanca, based on this, are y'all okay with these percentages? Did everything work out well? Did you see any adjustments that need to be made?
Yeah, it's not like the university where you have kind of an indirect rate. And so, the way we set this up, some, I guess for lack of a better way to put it, some departments are getting off easy and other ones aren't. We definitely tax, so for example, engineering. The EDC workload is a pretty heavy lift on the engineering side. So, if we were going to probably time track this dollar for dollar, you're probably getting a deal on that one. And then, other departments, we feel like the way that this is allocated is fair. It gives Blanca and her team what they need, and doesn't kind of disproportionately hit one department. Although I don't know, Omar might want to beg to differ with this, but I think it's set up pretty fairly. Gets everybody what they need.
So would you say there's anything that we would need maybe outside of this, like from quote unquote not the city side or whatever? What you want to call like
Other contractual?
yeah.
I think it's budgeted for professional services, our audit, our CPA services, finance services. That's what we used this year, and we went ahead and included that in our EDC budget.
Yeah, so you'll see when she covers the programs here, there's money, like, so for example, under marketing, as a program where obviously if we needed something, we would go out and contract out for that.
Awesome. I'm glad it's working out.
Hopefully, we don't need the attorney's services too much, right, Omar?
No, if you don't need the lawyer, you're doing great.
You're doing great. So if, for instance, if we go sideways with someone, if we get sideways with someone on something though, and it ends up becoming litigation, do you hire outside counsel, or would you handle that yourself?
No, actually, so the EDC does have insurance coverage.
Okay.
And so in those instances, we generally just refer to the carrier, and the carrier hires outside
Counsel. Okay, thanks.
I have a question. Before the EDC going under the city, do we know what we're spending annually for these type of services?
Yeah, we calculated it. I don't remember off the top of my head. It was over $1 million. That's why obviously we wanted to calculate some savings. And we did some feasibility for some other admin services. And we sat kind of right in the middle, somewhere in there. But yeah, we looked at all that. We can pull some of that back up. We did all that feasibility when we looked at converting.
That's all I have.
Okay. So the breakout of our EDC budget is our three main big buckets are programs, property, and projects. And I will switch over to our budget, which is also part of your packet for a breakdown. So let me share my other screen here. Where am I? Guess look, this one. Oh, here it is. Let me focus on more. So for our revenue side, as mentioned before, we're projecting a 7.7 million sales tax revenue increase. We did budget for some interest on investments that we have in our accounts with our bank. And we do have some tenants in the building that we do own on 1710 South 28th. We have 4 tenants, and they do pay their rent on time, so we budgeted about $91,000 on a yearly basis.
And just to reiterate here, the strategy, and again, we covered some of this in the workshop last month, but, Dago, we had what, a 20% growth year over year, roughly?
16.
So 16, 17%, we're budgeting 3, extremely conservative, and then, we've got the year of debt service covered and the year of operational covered. So, if the world ended, we'd be okay for a year, and we expect the sales tax revenue to come in much higher than what we budgeted. So there should be some upward flexibility if we have shifting priorities during the year.
Obviously, we want to be conservative and, cover our bases.
I spent quite a time on this, on the city side, just I think it's a good point that, it's pretty ultra-conservative, so we do anticipate a savings. But, so come mid-year, come, late in the year, that if there's high savings, that just really means that we did really well on revenue. So, not for lack of spending or anything like that, but something to have in the back of your mind. I know on the city side, I'm anticipating savings. We're still budgeting very conservatively, but any savings we're putting into one specific thing, which is road widening, street widening in the city. So we have already in the back, and we don't know what that budget's going to be, but we have a priority already earmarked where that money would go. So if all goes well, as anticipated, we would carry over our savings. But again, it shows a really resilient, just in case something unforeseen were to happen, that revenues, sales tax, hit a wall somewhere.
Hey, Ron, can we on a quarterly basis get a report that gives us, based on the revenue projection and quarterly, a % of each expense to revenue? For example, administrative services is approximately a million 87 of 7.8.
Sure.
So, I mean, so that, and we get a good basis, well, we need a basis first, you know, from budget, and then where are we at quarterly to that basis?
Yeah, I can share the format that I use. When I report on the quarterly to the city council, that's exactly the format
Yeah,
that we
so,
use.
you know, revenues are,
Yep.
exceed that, and
Yep.
we're at, marketing's 20%, and we see it at 10, we have a great opportunity to invest
Yep.
as a percent.
Yeah, we use a red and a green arrow
Yes.
just to kind of, and
But
obviously
those
anytime there's,
percentages mean a lot in terms of making decisions.
yeah, that's a good model to have.
Okay, so we reviewed our administrative services, contractual and maintenance services section. So it's $1,087,000. Our,
We're going to do 1 year for the bond and 1 year for what else?
for savings, is that what you're
Yeah.
talking about? So if I can go through this and then I can explain the savings. So for our programs, we did outline our priorities for the student internship program that was mentioned in our workshop last time, was included on here. Marketing is also a priority, sponsorship, donations, and research. That's a tool that we use as staff to make decisions or informative decisions to inform the board as well. Properties, we budgeted for property taxes, $100,000. Purchase of property, we had $1 million, and we added another $1 million from our unrestricted cash. So that will leave us with $5 million in savings. That's the bullet point that, President, you were referring to. We'll have $5 million that will cover our 1 year of debt service and administrative services.
So maybe I was wrong. I thought whenever we did our board planning session, we were going to do 6 months for one of them. I can't remember.
Yeah, so that was one of the things we wanted to discuss today, because I think that there was some competing input on that. You know, we started out with 3 months, and there was some discussion about 6, and then, you know, kind of got to the point where Ron suggested that what the city's strategy was. We said, well, maybe we want a year. So, I mean, that's one of the things we wanted feedback on from you today on, is does a year seem right? Is it too conservative? Not conservative enough? I mean, that's one of the things we'd like to hear your thoughts on. And then just to kind of put an endpoint on the change we made for the property, the thinking there is once we calculated what we had in unrestricted cash for emergencies, you know, basically, you know, the year debt service, the year of operational, there was enough flexibility in there to move money somewhere. So we doubled that property acquisition line item. And, you know, the thinking there is, you know, given the level of activity in the city, some of the priorities the board's discussed, you know, we feel like the timing is right to prioritize potential property acquisitions. So that's why we moved that cash into that line item.
I guess we can, Blanca, if you want to finish, and then
yes.
we can go down afterwards.
Utilities, $20,000. Improvements, maintenance, and repairs, that's $200,000, and this includes repairs to our current building that we own. We are looking at repairing part of the roof, painting the inside of the building, adding some lights, replacing some doors. So we want to make sure we have enough monies on here, and part of this improvements line item includes I think the 50% of the McIntyre Promenade courtyard that we are in collaboration with the city. So the city will invoice us 50% of all those improvements done to the McIntyre properties over here. So that's part of that. And then we have our general property insurance that we've added to this section here. And then moving on to our projects, we have $500,000 in incentives and economic development incentives monies. And we have some remaining projects. Most of them are in their last year. The fiscal year 22 will be their last year with the exception of First Hartford and Shaynade. First Hartford still has 3 more years to go, and Shaynade was just awarded this month. And that's a total of $942,000. So the total EDC programs, properties, and projects is $3.9 million. And our debt service, with our bond principal payments, our bond interest payments, and then the arena bond shortage, total debt service is $3.6 million. We are budgeting $1 million again for the arena bond shortage. Last year, it was a little over $900,000, and we don't foresee that increasing. So in discussions with our finance director, we agreed that $1 million was a good budget amount for the arena bond shortage for fiscal year 22. So total disbursements is $8.7 million. That $911,000 in overage will be transferred from unrestricted cash, and that's where we doubled our purchase of property line item from $1 million to $2 million.
Just some comments in terms of what the board thinks. In keeping with my earlier comment of percentages, if you do the math, 13.88% of budget goes to administrative services, 8.3% are for programs, 30.52% of the budget is for properties. For projects that we want to do, 12%, and our debt service equates to about 46.90%. Just programs, so under 20%, or right at 20% for programs and projects from the entire budget.
How much was personnel?
I'm sorry?
How much was personnel?
Well, personnel is in 13.88%.
That's actually not bad.
No, well, I'm looking at each category.
Yeah.
In terms of, anytime you can get 50% on labor, you're good,
Yeah.
right? And I know we're taking advantage of the city cost, which is a great job doing that. But in terms of programs, 8.3%, projects, 12% of a $7.8 million budget. Just thoughts, for conversation purposes.
Your opinion, we're being too conservative?
No. I'm just saying, this is not,
And
is our priorities as an economic development board, if you're asked on the street, hey, you have a 7.6% budget, what are you doing? How's it allocated? Just to throw that out just from a reasoning opportunity and just to let it sink in.
I'm with you on that. That's why I was like, if we, those 1 years that we have in reserve, if we brought them down to 6, but every month we made sure that we kept up with it. Anything that we saw that was kind of an outlier or whatever, we can start adjusting it at that point to have more funds for at least projects that, like you're saying, economic development.
So that's definitely one discussion topic. The other thing here is I guess kind of semantics in a way. Downtown revitalization was such a big priority this year, and that's the way we present the budget. That's kind of rolled into debt service. So yeah, it's 40+%, and if you look at other EDCs, they're kind of all over the place when it comes to overall debt service. But within that percentage is your biggest priority from this year. So we just don't call it a project because in EDC statutes under Type A, when you're discussing incentives, they have to be called project. So some of that, I think the way you would communicate that to the community when you're asked, that's part of the way that I would explain it.
And then you could take that a step further, and previous to this board, that weighs heavy on the massive capital projects. Everything that we're doing now, but obviously that would, El Tula Gym, the Capable Kids, so it's very capital intensive. So, the best part of that is that it's a tangible result. So you can see that's where that went. So, but yeah, strategically speaking, it's where you put your priority.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, Raul, but just saying 13%, that's on the overall budget. We're not considering the projects that had already been done prior to this board and the debt service.
Right.
So what is the true percentage after you remove the debt service? And the incentive, then that percentage is higher. And anybody wants to figure that out, that's a better sounding number on the incentive side.
I'm just going off of just because we're talking about 2022 budget.
Yeah, so that's saying we
Very
have the
linear.
entire budget, 100% of the budget for incentives, but actually, there's only a small percentage left of the budget after the debt service and projects and prior debt. So whatever, if anybody knows that number, that'd be something we could relay.
Can you repeat that just to make sure, so we can...
I'm saying that when we go, the numbers, the 13% is based on the overall budget.
Yes.
We don't have 8 million to use for incentives. There's only a portion of the 8 million that's already, the 8 million's already allocated here, there, and everywhere prior to us.
Sure.
Current projects, so the 13% allocated to new incentives is actually a lot higher. So we need to know what that real number is.
Basically saying like El Tula is,
Correct, it's an incentive.
can't be
right?
worded
So-
as a project incentive, but.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Like
so-
downtown can't be worded that way.
I think
but
the finance guy
it's-
knows what I mean,
It's
right?
in there.
Well, almost every one of those capital projects, if you put it on that lens, was an incentive
Right, right.
type project. It's different kind,
Yeah, but
obviously.
I know what Raul says, because we get it all the time. You guys at the EDC, well, what are you guys doing exactly? So we, it's good to have an answer and say, hey, man, 46% of our budget is projects everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've said, hey, have you gone to the food trucks? That's EDC, actually. Or, really, that's EDC?
Well, because I think a lot of people also, when they think EDC, they don't think quality of life projects necessarily. They think only jobs, that you're bringing in new businesses that are creating jobs. They're not thinking about the parks and the other things that we have been doing. So I think it's incumbent upon us to make that clear to people too, that the EDC is not just about the creating of the jobs, but creating a quality of life that then is going to bring the type of industries here that we want and diversify the type of work, that we see here in our city.
But I think, and Brian just updated some of going back to the website, I think it's really important to put the 900 jobs retained and acquired in that period too, because, that's a substantial number. So that's a direct output. So, so quality of life is part of the equation, but 900 jobs in a year, that's what you say we've done.
Yeah,
So-
no, absolutely. I'm just saying, when you're talking about dollars,
Oh, yeah.
that it doesn't all just go for that. We have to, we're doing different types of
Correct.
projects.
And to piggyback off that, but I haven't heard anything from the outreach. Was it the outreach we have to all the existing businesses with was it Buxton or what was it? We haven't had any updates on that. And because that's what I tell people. We're actually got several potential contracts pending to come into the city of Edinburg.
Yeah, we can give you an update during executive on that. Yeah.
And then on the savings itself, I know we had asked, can we put it in anything that's like stocks or things that generate more interest, more income? So it's just not like, I don't want to say it this way, but dead money in the bank, you know what I mean? So there's no like legal way of let's say, just an example here, we hired, a stock market manager to come in and say, hey, okay, look, you know what, here's $100,000, see if you can make it grow from our reserves,
It really has to be framed in policy because, taking sales tax dollars and assuming risk, that puts you guys maybe in a compromised position. So it'd have to, that's why generally it's like a tax saver plus kind of a higher return, but it's very, it's
like
safe.
a fixed return item that
Yes,
says,
yeah.
guaranteed CDs, things. I was just throwing stuff out there to see.
I think where that's where I think the real estate comes into a market of
Yeah,
investment.
I'm just thinking warehouse space now.
Yeah.
So,
And we're actually working on a strategy for increasing the efficiency on our bank account side, and so we're going to have some recommendations next month about that I think kind of speak to this overall goal.
Brian, I have a question. Dan touched on something about people asking what we're doing with EDC and things. And going back to our website, are we doing any updates on our website, informing people what actually we're doing? I noticed that there's some posts there from I believe it's April.
Yeah, we've got the controls now, so if you'll notice on the statistics, so I actually have been the one updating all the statistics on there, and so we've got that done. The next phase of kind of prioritizing time toward this is...
correct that a lot of people don't see what we're actually doing, but it'd be nice to put some of the stuff that we're doing there. That's,
Yeah, we don't have to wait on a contractor to do it. We do that in-house now, so if there are things that you would like to highlight, that stuff that we may not know about or can't get to, let us know, and we'll put it up there.
So who does the cities? Because they do a really good job updating daily. Don't we have some skin in that from them doing ours?
So, I'll take a step back because, we had a discussion today, Brian and I did with Ronnie from the chamber, and I would put the third equation in there that really most effectively when somebody does something of significance, in some way or form, all three of those parties should kind of put that out. So we are going to work through the contractual agreement that we have between the city and the chamber to really use kind of that single, so kind of a landing page to where, because somebody, why have three websites that you have a database administrator just doing nothing but updates when you can do it one way,
Yeah.
and you might have different readers.
And the case holds true. We just had a really nice event, and the city's website got updated. The chamber's website got updated, but ours did not.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna tag somebody to do that,
And so,
that's internal for the city that we can address. Because like Brian just said, he's updating it. And
yeah,
this
but
is
it shouldn't be. Brian has
no,
enough work
absolutely
to do.
not. Yeah.
Needs to be those folks that we're paying. That was the part of the agreement. If it went in-house, we would have those services available to us, and we should ask to be treated as a department.
Yeah, that's where my inquiry to leadership was for our graphic designer and our marketing person to really focus on the EDC and the work that we do, which now will live in the communications and media department, which will focus on the EDC. Any other questions?
So on the, going back to the 1 year of reserves, do you want to keep it that way? But let's say we do reduce it, where would y'all want to put those monies? Like, how Ron was saying, theirs are going to go all towards road expansion.
So, to some extent, I think that's a policy decision. On the staff side, we already talked about why we doubled the amount we've got into property acquisition. I can tell you that things are heating up, and so being able to move early and quickly on priority areas, would be good. The other thing you may want to consider is on the workforce side, and Blanca will explain a little bit more when she gets to the work plan here in a second, what our thinking was there. But we didn't get a lot of demand for some of the certification stuff this year. COVID might have had something to do with that, but we're gonna kind of rethink the way we allocate some of that money into workforce and focus more on that student internship concept that we discussed during the workshop last month. But if there are other programs that the board would like to see us take a look at, we're open to that. But if it were me, I know where the requests come, and it's do you have any existing warehouse space? help me understand where the priority growth corridors are and what land do you control there. So, those are the kind of inquiries that we field every week, every other day, honestly. So that's if you want a staff recommendation between, focusing on the airport, following through on the downtown revitalization this year, and acquiring property for kind of larger scale projects. I think those would be the areas I'd look at.
And that will address, Mr. President, your question about the RFIs and why, if we get callbacks, a lot of the inquiries are for large warehouses that need to be ready within a month or two. So we're not close to that when it comes to warehouse space.
Sorry, I know Danny went out. It's a quick question, but how long would it take to construct a warehouse of 100,000 square feet? I have no idea.
Right now, I don't really have much of a good idea either, just because of the way the supply chain's working these days. But it's not an inordinate amount of time. If you're kind of headed in the direction of should we prioritize something like that to have some existing space this year, I think it's a good idea. I mean, there's a project that we've already announced at the industrial park that, they would have already moved in if we had a space ready for them. And so, they're going through the process right now, designing and constructing that. So, I would love to get a jump start on some of that if we could.
Yeah. And I got to say, it's music to my ears, because even before you guys came on board, when I was on this EDC the first time around, I had 3 objectives. It was downtown, airport, industrial park. Those are the 3 things I mentioned even before we got formed. And then when as you know, every time we try to sell a property, I'm like, I don't want to sell. So I'm glad we're talking acquisition. So I'm just real glad. I wasn't here for that. I wasn't here for that one. But I just, like I said, it's music to my ears, because I really think that we have to be in control so that we can bring all the big businesses here. And like the warehouse thing right away, I'm like, ding. I mean, how many jobs will that bring just if we land one of those big companies, because we have the warehouse space?
So the 3 major, if you look at past OWASA, I believe, the 3 major projects are warehouse on 281.
Yep.
And that's all FAR.
Yeah. Yeah, but I do have to say that even though I'm on board for all that, we have to make sure and take care of our existing companies, and especially the larger ones. And I know we had some conversations on one of the businesses that was kind of getting courted another way. So I want to make sure that the budget has something to fix some of the businesses that have been here a long time. I've heard some complaints on never getting incentivized on certain things, and some of it is basic infrastructure. Company's been here for a long time. Spent a lot of money, a lot of jobs, a lot of tax payments over the decades, and I think we just have to keep that in mind also.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we have Blanca walk through the work plan, and then you can, I think that might help inform this discussion about where you might want to move some things on the budget, if the board's
and
okay with that.
that's something that I wanted to add also. I know that Ron and the staff have been telling us for quite some time that we've been needing that warehouse space and things. And I think maybe we might want to consider some type of workshop to get something in plan and go with times and dates as to what we want to do by when. And that way we can actually get moving on that, because I do think that you guys are correct, and we want to bring in businesses, but we got to have some space available for them. Especially you guys are the ones that are getting the calls daily on this.
Yeah, it's really, for doing this for 20 years, it's really changed. Fundamentally, going through COVID and experience of, Amazon taking over the world and the expectations for people being able to come in and take over existing space, within a matter of months.
Yep.
If you see some of these RFIs that come out of the governor's office, nobody has patience anymore. And we used to be able to build things and go and work a prospect and eventually get somebody in. People would have a year lead time, and the expectation now has completely changed.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this warehouse idea we keep talking about, because I think that'll be one of the fastest way to develop the airport also.
So just to put some perspective, because we're doing 2 other warehouses, smaller, but from an engineering side to site work and all that, you're looking probably right around 12 to 14 months. That's without supply chain disruptions.
And how much estimated cost?
I can get that for you in a second.
Ron, once we approve this budget, can we come back and amend the budget for those future, okay.
You know, at any point in having these savings, I think that's what staff was alluding to, having these savings, you know, when the right opportunity presents itself, that gives us an immediate flexibility
To be ready.
to go to that.
And this will be probably the major pivot point on this is if it stays on course, we'll be above that 3%. So there's going to be some funding there.
Yep.
If we take for granted 11, I mean, kind of where we're at today, right? Is that correct? Over 20?
No, it was 16, I think.
16.
Yeah.
16.
Three is
15. So
good.
we just take that number for granted.
Yep.
And say it continues. What would be that difference in budget from the 3% if we, year over year, do another 16%? What would that be in extra income?
It's about 10% of the total, right? So,
900,000?
yeah,
little less than
be
$1
about $1
million.
million,
Yeah, that's
I
a,
would say.
And so what we got to be ready for is where do we apply that $1 million?
warehouse.
We have to have strategy.
I like your idea, Brian, let's work through the work plan and we can ask our questions as Blanca goes through.
Yes, so moving on to the work plan for fiscal year 2022. These are the bond projects that will be reported on a quarterly basis: Capable Kids Park, El Dula Center, Resource Workforce Center, and then now the newly added Arts, Culture, and Events Center, along with the parking garage. So all of these will be key priorities for the next year, for the fiscal year 22, and we will report progress ongoing on these.
Resource, that's the, with the collaboration with the LRGDC over here? Is that what that is?
No, that's the one we didn't get to in the work plan for,
Oh, that we didn't get to.
for this year.
Correct.
Yep.
Which the EDA money could actually support that, correct?
That would be a very applicable use of the match for what transpires there.
Yes. And that's where the planning comes in with hopefully the phase 1 feasibility study, and then we get invited for phase 2. The SPARK completion, we're still in the middle of the gift card program, so we'll have to continue that along in the next couple of months. A small business improvement program for facade amenities, that's coming after the SPARK program. And then as mentioned before, a priority, we have the airport with the EDA grant, and hopefully we will meet with EDA soon to discuss that opportunity. The industrial park site plan and recruitment, we are working closely, Brian and I, with our Coldwell Banker, with our real estate broker, to re-envision the remainder of the industrial park to increase some efficiency there. There are big chunks of land that we have currently, and the demand right now that we are seeing is 3 to 5 acres. So we're getting a portion of the industrial park and replatting that, and then recruiting for those smaller lots and fill in the North Industrial Park while leaving larger pieces of land for those bigger companies that are looking for that, that are needing that. We're leaving some space for them there.
Is the industrial park a viable option for warehousing for us in those big slots? Since we already have the land?
Yes,
As a
absolutely.
startup?
Yeah, so I mean, part of the strategy here is to keep, if you can imagine the picture, the northwest corner, and then to some extent the southwest corner, keep those as large contiguous areas. And you know, I mean, if you think about the size of the Santana plant, it's 100,000 square feet. Well, half of it is, and then you know they've got another facility. I mean, in total it's like 190 something. So you know, we could do another site like that in the northwest corner if that opportunity ever arose. But we don't want to pass up, you know, these smaller projects either. Sure. So you know, we're gonna go ahead and go through the work with the engineering department, replat, you know, kind of market those as those smaller parcels, but you know, not go so far to kind of.
Yeah, not at the expense of, because I was.
Right.
I was always in the thinking of that we need a master plan for the entire industrial park, and large projects like warehousing is what I always had in mind to complement the airport, but not at the expense of not accepting businesses that want to move into Edinburgh. So
Yeah.
that's why I was always saying a little bit, but I understand that. And for the record, I had not seen airport-EDA grant that on here at all. It's funny how we said it.
You're popping Ron's
Yeah,
bubble.
we said it, and we all think we're all in the same sheet of music, so that's good.
Yes, and we will continue our retail development strategy with Buxton. We'll have one more year in our contract with them, and we'll definitely continue to meet with them. They do check on us on a quarterly basis. Staff appreciates that because they provide training on the data and how we can use the data for the companies that want to move into Edinburg. So we're constantly learning something new and leveraging the data that Buxton provides for the retail development. We included the student internship program on here as part of the conversation that we had, where we will definitely have to plan something with UTRGV and the community college STC and the business community to ensure that our students are getting the experience that they need so when they graduate they get living wages. So we'll definitely provide more updates on that. And then the incubator partnership with LRGVDC and UTRGV that was approved today. That's going to be one of the focus for this year, for the fiscal year 22.
Blanca, what about the, because when you were saying retail development, I was thinking something else. The idea we had discussed about, there's going to be retail at the bottom of the parking garage, and then also we had talked about maybe on some housing that the university might be doing with retail at the bottom as well. What about that project? Would that fall under any of the retail development, or?
Yes, that's included on there.
Okay.
Anything related to retail that's part of this priority. Okay. Including the parking garage and the other project as well.
And on the mixed housing? Mm-hmm.
Mixed housing.
Okay.
So I wanted Blanca to kind of go through this list so you can see the menu. We intentionally did not propose budgets for a couple of these bullet points. So for example, the small business improvements, and Dan, that's a lot of what you're talking about. We wanted you all to be able to tell us, particularly with respect to that savings, that emergency fund, we've got, if we back off that, if you have input about where we should allocate some of that money, we appreciate it. The only other thing I want to say before you kind of get into that discussion is the small business improvements, it's tricky. Remember, you are a Type A economic development corporation that is focused exclusively on job creation under the state of Texas statutes. So for something, there are some exceptions. If you recall the election for some of the Type B allowable activities, you can do those things, but there are certain rules attached. There are areas of the city where you can do some of that stuff and areas where you cannot. I know you do get questions from people, hey, we'd like to go to the EDC, I want to open a restaurant, and, do you have money for X? Unfortunately, as a Type A, and that's putting aside even what we have in the incentive policy, we just can't do some of that stuff. There are cases where we can, so if you wanted to allocate some money toward that, we'd be happy to kind of go through the rules and the eligibility for that stuff again. But just know, because I know you do get those questions, and because we do too every single day. Just the way that we're structured here and the way state law governs EDCs, some of that stuff, we can't get into.
So, I've been harping on you probably 3 times a month since you got here about the small business stuff and getting allocations for it. So, I know you have facade amenities, et cetera, and I had some ideas as well, but of that, what can we do to support the small businesses and stay in our scope, for lack of a better term?
So there are areas of the city, roughly, and Omar, tell me if I say something incorrect here. There are areas of the city, if you can characterize them as entertainment areas, generally we can do some things there that a typical Type A EDC would not be able to do. That was one of the results of the election, was it 2011 when they changed when they elected for the Type B?
I think it was around 2011, yeah. There are some additional abilities that this EDC has as a result of that proposition that was put to the voters, and they approved it.
So I think nightlife is a demand in our city. would that qualify under entertainment?
On its own, it would not. There is some connections that it has to have to other projects. If you want the distinctions of that, I could probably provide you something. But there's, literally that proposition had very specific language of the additional activities the EDC could take.
So retail is a good example to talk through. So if you remember back when we had Carlton Schwab, the executive director of TEDC, do the training, it was a long time, it was a year ago now. But the way he describes this, I think is pretty useful. So as a type A, retail recruitment is sort of off the table in terms of providing incentives for sales tax dollars. What you can do is invest in infrastructure to support retail development. And this is not a distinction without a difference. There is a difference here. So for example, if we're looking at things like commercial plazas, we can't really use sales tax revenue to subsidize a retail operation. But if there were site improvements or infrastructure needs, those are potentially eligible expenses for sales tax revenue.
I do want to add also, so keep in mind that from the city side, there's much more flexibility. And things, well, obviously like the Spark. The Spark program, not $1 came from EDC funds, but administered through the EDC, through the Economic Development Department, and obviously with partnership with the EDC. So, and we're going to continue to do that. So in other words, the city can make up the gaps. And we know small businesses are a big part of the vitality of the city, but I don't want to say this the wrong way, but it's a different type of quality of life. So from a sheer sales tax generation and jobs creation, it might not have the data that the type A funds could be used, but we can supplement the difference. So that's kind of the beauty of having a department. It really doesn't matter where the funds come from, but the EDC as a board, economic development in the city, still benefit.
So I think here's what we're looking for. On that bullet point with the small business assistance program, if you tell us today that you'd like to make that a priority, and you have a general idea of what you might want to invest toward that, just let us know, and we could even talk in percentages. Just we don't need to put a dollar value on this, but if you want to make that a priority program, just give us guidance today to do that, and we will figure out a way to move things around and make that happen. If we have to do that on the city side and kind of reorganize some things on the EDC side because of restrictions on how we spend sales tax revenue, we'll do that.
And that's great. Because we are already getting, I don't know if the board is, but I don't know, it's not pushback. It's not,
Yeah.
So why only downtown? What about, and you gotta, there's a focus, obviously, we need to have that focus, but we do represent the entire city. And so there is questions now, I'm sure you got them as well, regarding, well, why only downtown? Why not revitalize X Street? And, we're not gonna satisfy everybody, and I get that, but there should be something there for outliers, for lack of a better word, to benefit the entire city. And the entire city benefits, we all benefit, we know that, not just a particular geographic area.
One of the things I had asked if we could do was, I know some of this money is coming from like COVID relief funds and things like that. If every bar and restaurant got either a facelift or a patio or a COVID-friendly space, we could be that one city where everybody's like, hey, just go to a restaurant and bar there because they already have outdoor patio space. You're not having to Google. I don't know if you guys had to do this over the last year, like Googling, hey, do they actually have somewhere to eat outside?
Yeah.
Do I have a drive-through? Like,
Well, take it further from a developer or someone who owns a strip center. In order to attract business into the city, where we fund somebody to build outdoor space.
yeah, that's basically
So it
that's
doesn't have to
exactly
be an existing restaurant. Remember, we're about attracting, and it doesn't have to be a restaurant. It could be
whatever.
daycare, it could be whatever. We have to look at its entirety.
So we are like totally in love with that idea, and will make that happen, has put that in a tier of things that we will definitely do. The only issue, especially with retrofit, is that, developers, when you build, you're at the code minimum generally. So there's no place to put an outdoor that would not impact the parking spaces that were required for that place. So it's a whole ripple effect of code that we're going to have to develop a policy that's real clear. But incentivizing it, yeah, absolutely, we should, and I think we will. But navigating through the policy that ripple effect, that's something that we have to really think through. But do we need more outdoor space here? Oh, absolutely.
So where does something like, I see small business improvements, and when I think of small business improvements, I think of, yes, the aesthetics of a business, but also the operation of the business, whether or not we can improve the way they operate so that they are then bringing in more revenues, right, and creating then more jobs. The training programs that are going to help the small businesses, the infrastructure, some of the things that they may need good Wi-Fi, they may need good, things that are going to help them to operate. Where would that fall in here?
Well, I'll say, because if there's no other reason but increasing revenue or creating jobs, why would we do anything? Doing a facade without them having their commitment.
Yeah, they have to. The facade is also to create a more pleasing look so you have more customers. Yeah. But also, just, when it comes down to it, it's how great of a service are you providing? What kind of product are you selling? I mean, those are the things that draw people back over and over again. And so making sure that they're up to, today's standards or par on what people are looking for.
You mean like operationally?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was our thinking about the Spark follow-up with the Get Digital. We don't want to recreate the wheel. I mean, we would rather, if that's a board priority, we would rather work through Small Business Development Center, other technical assistance programs, and if you wanted to kind of beef up that line item within the programs, we'd be open to that. We just don't. I don't want to create a new training program if we can work through somebody else who's
sure. And a lot of those we can do for low cost or no cost. I mean, yeah.
But we have clearly identified through the Spark program, I can't overstate this enough, a massive amount of capacity building to do, a massive amount. So, and that would clearly pay for itself, and that's not putting $1 into a facade, into, building their own business capacity. The ROI there is huge.
Is there such a thing, Ron, as a paintbrush approach to this small business improvement where a program such as any business in the city who wants to upgrade their outdoor sign, please apply. Very specific.
Sure.
Any business who wants to do landscaping and plant the minimum of 3 more trees. Very specific. Anybody who wants to repave their parking lot. And very specific. And so all of a sudden we get brand new signs everywhere. All of a sudden we get brand new blacktops everywhere. All of a sudden we get, and it's not all, it's directed very finite into something very specific. Is that eligible?
Well, 2 out of the 3 that you just mentioned would not be EDC.
Okay.
Should we still do them? Yes, we should do all 3 of those, but that's why it really doesn't matter. We're still committed to doing that because there's an ROI improvement. But we do know that's a big policy thing. We have to write skin in the game. The Spark program was great, and eventually it's kind of that triple win effect, but we didn't really require skin in the game. Mm-hmm. But, once we go to a facade, once we go to something like that, I think we should say that there's a demand side that you have to meet too. So, and I think we would get a lot of takers, hopefully.
I think you will.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we foresee those this year. We talked long and extensively about the outdoor program and facade programs, but those would have to be funded through the city. Mm-hmm. Which that, again, I know the council's completely committed to small businesses, so doing that through American Rescue Act funds, that's what it's for, to recover more resiliently.
So if it's funded through the city, but we have it on here as a part of our work plan, why would it be on here as part of our work plan if it would be funded by the city?
Allocation of staff time and resources toward it.
Oh,
I don't want to suggest something that's kind of out of scope for what the board wants to do. So even though the city might be paying for something like a facade improvement, that would require a lot of staff time to administer. So, I mean, I think that's exactly what we're looking for with this discussion. I mean, if you could help us kind of take a look at this list and figure out, kind of what the priority ranking should be, I think that'll help us.
Set a clear direction as to where you value go.
I think with the last one right now, we have a few months to see what that pans out, but I think that one's going to become pretty much, pretty important if we get that 25 million. But I kind of like the order that you have it in, to tell you the truth. Maybe on the internship program, since, finding individuals that are qualified are so difficult right now, maybe we move that one up the ladder, because it's an immediate need is staff just about everywhere that I know of in any industry.
yeah, and make it more to, not just internship, but apprenticeship, where the students are really hands-on, getting mentored, and learning on the job, so then they're ready, they're prepared when they graduate and ready to start the job.
We're not just providing people hands, we're actually giving the students something back. I don't know if anybody else has their... We know Dan wants airport number 1.
I think airport's one of those that could be a very long-term, many-year project.
Yeah, that's why, starting with the designation of a department, getting a good department head in there, and really just communicating that that's the priority, I think that's going to be key. So I don't think, we at some point, I know we, from a budget standpoint, we put in a lot of capital projects in there, and then I would think at some point, especially when it's tied directly to an industry, the EDC would probably come to the table there, but it's not right in front of us yet.
I don't know if this is going to be possible, but let's try. As a percentage of kind of an overall program budget, how much priority would you put on something like small business improvements?
For me, it's high. I believe I was placed in this chair because of my small business application. So for me, I know there's education and I believe mine was small business. So for me, it's high.
At the current needs, I would definitely put small business and student internship as number 1 and number 2. So, those two combined probably at this immediate time, maybe 75%. With it hopefully panning out to where we get more funds and it changes and we get more budgeting or whatever, but I'd say to have direct impact ASAP. And then on the long-term side, airport is clear. Airport industrial park, incubator, they might be even one item at this point, at some point in time, those 3 together.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think those 3 definitely are a cluster in a sense. And then the small business improvements is important because not only do we want to create new jobs, but we want the existing businesses to ramp up and be able to create more jobs. And so we want to work with the existing businesses. That's going to bring your sales tax revenues up too.
Okay.
And I'm just talking about on this page, I think, like the key fundamentals of still acquiring land, going after the big thing, that's a whole separate. Now, I'm not saying 75% of everything we do, just an FYI. Sure. Just what's on this page.
We get you. Yeah.
Yeah, just in case anybody. wants to come find me later on.
So you're essentially saying do all of it.
Just in a different order, yeah.
That's where we're at too,
Yeah.
so.
Just
Yeah.
do some faster, do some slower.
Well, those
Because
three
they're
are-
clearly priorities.
Yeah.
I think everyone in anything in the city.
Those are immediate and tangible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's immediate, and the rest doesn't mean it's not a focus.
Yeah.
They're just going to
Take
they
longer.
got a longer tail.
Yeah, I think they're all attainable, I mean, because we're budgeting 3% growth, and we know it's gonna be much more than that. But I agree, I know that, the time I've lived here, I remember when they did a small business incentive, where I think they gave like $10,000 for businesses, or reimbursement when they did the front facade, and everything got upgraded real fast. And to point out that downtown, Raul, I know that for a long time, downtown had been ignored. Even during that time, that incentive, it was just the majority of the businesses and the storefronts that got the facelift, and downtown was ignored back then. But, yeah, I'm in agreement with everybody else, and of course, yeah, to summarize, we kind of need it all done, but I think helping out the small businesses now will help them get jobs and stay in business. Of course, they all need employees. I went to a restaurant the other day, and I was happy to see that the owners weren't actually serving. There's people starting to work again. Well, because a lot of the funding ended, right? A lot of the unemployment assistance. So,
Is there an internal mechanism? Aaron told me a great story earlier. He's looking for some property in McAllen, and the city already called him. What are your thoughts? What are you doing? Do we have some type of proactive approach that either it's a lead source or somehow it got to the city of McAllen, and they're already calling? What are your thoughts? What do you need help with? What do you more proactive approach before the project gets started?
Yeah, we do. We get tipped frequently.
Sure.
We look to our broker for some of that. A lot of it just happens internally.
Sure.
Sometimes it comes from one of you all. So we do have that follow-up capability. Where I'd like to see some improvement, and I mentioned this before, we have some large prime sites on growth corridors in the city, and I think being staff that's relatively new here, we don't have a lot of existing relationships with some of those landowners. Some of those are out of town or out of state. And so we don't really have a mechanism for checking in with people who are kind of outside the purview of either our broker or an internal relationship. And that we need to invest some time in, because the really, really kind of highest quality EDCs out there in Texas, like they can pick up the phone and call those landowners, and they've already got relationships. And so that's something we're going to prioritize this year, because it's work we have to do internally. That's nothing we can really look to our broker to do for us.
What happened with me, Brian, personally, in McAllen is I went and I talked to the planning and zoning in McAllen. And then about a week later, I got a call from Juan Mejia from McAllen asking me how it went and if I had any more questions with regards to what I was looking into. And they kind of kept me in the loop. But what I'm saying is that, like, the EDC probably won't get a lot of these calls, but maybe the planning and zoning will. And they'll say, you know what, somebody's looking into purchasing some property. They want to find out what kind of use it's got and things like that. But a kind of follow-up to, or maybe we could, as an EDC, have that tip from that department, I said, look, somebody's wanting information in this area. This is what they want to do. You guys follow up on that, or something like that.
Yeah, we're making some structural changes that we haven't really, burdened you all with kind of the bureaucrats, some of the bureaucratic changes we're making over here. But Ron's explained them in the past. We're going to move to more of this sort of development services model to try to break down some of the silos between planning and zoning and engineering and building.
I know Dan and I had talked a few months back about, we kind of get involved with all the bureaucratic stuff that we forget. Dan had said, we need to get a little group of team that can meet up with these businesses that are wanting to come into Edinburg. And that type of deal, because I know you guys have enough workload on your own that maybe there's some more stuff that we could do as directors, in approaching and in trying to find out if there's any more information that that potential businesses need. so we could help them.
And that'd be great, appreciate it.
Where does the master plan fall in these priorities? Because I think the last time we spoke, I think it was, we hadn't done a master plan in a while.
The comprehensive plan for the
Yeah,
city?
yeah.
Yeah, so we're working our way through the development code update. If you remember, we had some workshops that some of you participated in. We have about half of a draft of the new code completed, and actually our steering committee is meeting next week. And so we're still on schedule. By the end of the year, or maybe early January, we will have a complete first, or almost a complete final draft, I guess, at that point, of the new code. So, if you want to kind of re-engage in that process, now's the time to do it. I mean, I know Kieran's actively involved as a member of the steering committee there. I know, Raul, you've come to a couple things. So, we actually have things on paper to look at here pretty soon.
Is that going to impact any of these priorities?
Hopefully it'll make our life a little bit easier, because we're trying to, we're kind of taking a best-in-class approach to the code and looking for ways to make it work a little better for everybody and provide a lot more flexibility. Our zone, so just for example, our zoning districts now, we have way too many of them. I mean, nobody understands the difference between some of them, and honestly, they shouldn't have to. And so we're trying to slim down and make the development process a little bit easier, both to understand and to actually engage in. And so that's part of the thinking about reorganizing some of the departments in the development services model too. So, I'm really excited about the new code. It's going to be, I think it's going to be much improved. I mean, the last time it was done was 2007.
Right.
Think how much the world has changed.
I've been a part of some of them, and it's definitely getting way more efficient. And some of the stuff is already kind of like auto approved at this point now, and planning and zoning.
Yeah, but I'll be happy if anybody wants more information about that. Be glad to get you up to speed.
All I care about, are they redefining downtown boundaries? Because I think downtown boundaries stopped at Veterans for some odd reason.
When this is done, we'll all know exactly where downtown is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Small steps for mankind.
Well, and I think that we can build off of what some, like for instance, airport, the incubator, and we can use other people's money. For instance, we get EDA, we get, state money for airport, perhaps, federal dollars. Those are monies then that we can use that we won't have to focus our own monies to do, but we can use their monies to build that up. And as a result, other businesses will come in because those have been built up. The university's looking at expanding on-campus life, on having a more thriving on-campus life, which if we do, and more students are living on campus, then that's going to also then bring more restaurants, more businesses that will want to, I think, locate near there because they'll have a larger population that they will be serving. And so I think we're going to benefit from other dollars, other investments from, and so where we focus our dollars then is to make sure that the downtown area, the current businesses and all that are improving their operations and are bringing in additional jobs. But we also then don't ignore the fact that we are going to consequentially benefit from other industries that are adding on.
And that's kind of back to what you said earlier. That's why the sheer reality is there's some segments that you don't have to incentivize. They're growing already. That's why, capitalizing and enforcing your assets and then kind of spurring growth where it's not happening.
Right.
But if you put it where it already is, you really don't need to.
So I think the one remaining item here is the reserves. I don't know, Chair, if you want to get back to that discussion and see if there are thoughts on.
That's my only concern there, because I was like, if we want to do more land development or more land purchasing and warehouse building or something, we're going to need more money than $2 million. So I would like to, if we reduce both those 1 years to 6 months and put it in that bucket. Yeah. That'd probably be the only adjustment I would want to make. I don't know if anybody has any more.
Just just remember, you can do that at any time. So if you want to, you can put the placeholder either of those. So, and if there is opportunities, which almost every month, which we're going to talk about some here in a bit, then you can say yes or no, and if it's yes, then you just make that modification to slide it over.
And 6 months was the initial recommendation from staff. Is that correct?
What is the city doing?
1 year. Well, it's
Yeah.
1 year of debt service. We're setting aside 1 year of debt service and doubling, so the best practice is 60 days of full operation.
60
We're
days,
doubling that to 120. So,
Correct.
yeah. But yeah, for your sake, 6 months
Yeah.
might be the sweet spot.
Yep.
You don't want to do 6, keep a year, match the city?
I'm good with 6
I
months.
would like to do so.
I'm okay with 6, because if something comes up, we'll just readjust again.
6 months is good.
6 months? Okay, so then,
That just gives us more immediate cash for purchase.
so then if, Omar, in order to approve F, would we say, approving it, but making one adjustment of changing the debt service and operating reserves to 6 months?
Yeah, that would be the easiest way to do it. Just whatever direct amendments you want to make, state that in the motion.
Am I allowed to make that motion, or do you?
You are allowed.
Okay. So
Or
then,
you can defer to somebody else if you prefer.
Let's hear the money, man. I'll let you make it.
I make a motion to amend the reserves to 6 months and then approve the fiscal year 2022 budget as presented.
I second that motion if stated.
If you don't mind, could you change the motion to is budget, work plan, and what was the other one in the item?
It's
Budget, staffing services, and lease
Services
agreement,
and
and work plan.
and debt service.
Okay. So my motion is to adjust the budget, staffing services, and lease agreement, and work plan to a 6-month reserve instead of a year, and then approve that budget.
I second that motion if stated by
Right.
Dan did.
All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Awesome. There's no other business. I'll entertain a motion to enter executive session.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. It is 6:29 PM. We're entering executive session. All right, it is 7:33 PM, and I will entertain a motion to re-enter open session. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. It's 7:34 PM, and we are now back in open session. I'll like to entertain a motion, or make a motion, to authorize staff to proceed and execute as discussed in closed session.
Second.
That'll work. Yeah.
That'll work. I was just making sure. All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Is there any other business we'd like to discuss? Nope. All right, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. So, it's longest meeting since